Hey, what is up, everybody? It is May 27th, 2025, just in case you forgot what year it was. But anyway, what's up, class? It is time for another Gaming Academy with yours truly, GQAzndood, along with the faculty as well. We have another jam-packed session coming out tonight. It is, I believe, class, let me check, 33. Oh my gosh, we did 33 of these already. And it's the final week of our St. Jude's Play Live 2025 charity stream as well on the channel. So if you've been waiting to donate, now's the time to hit that goal. I think we're at about 250, so we're pretty close, and help us change lives of children everywhere. So tonight we're digging pretty deep into the gaming history, of course, as always, diving headfirst into Sony's shooter chaos, talking Bungie blunders, Borderlands budgets, and all the wild rumors flying around the industry. Pretty wild out there. And of course, we got the tech, a stack of rhetorical fire, and plenty of game talk in now playing. So buckle up, because this one's got hot takes, deep cuts, and probably a few controller throwing moments when you're playing Ninja Turtles. So let's get into it. So with that said, we got a lot to cover. So let's introduce the faculty here. Let's just go ahead and take it to the streets with the Blazing Ace, the Nelson.
How's it going, everybody? Good to see you. So yeah, this week's kind of interesting, considering it's class 33.
Hey, all the others before us have perished.
For those,
we're going backwards.
Look, we had fun every episode before, and we will for those that come after.
There you go. Don't sue us, Sandball. All right, of course, the guy that brings all the info into news to the academy, the guy yours truly, tragically late.
Kill an ace right with there. That's a great way to start this one, guys. I appreciate that.
Choke them out. Choke them out. What up, everybody? How was you guys' weeks since last time?
Since last time, pretty solid. Just trying to keep up, not just with current favorites, but also starting to dip back into some of the older older PS1 stuff. I mean, I've been actually starting to pick up Street Fighter EX again.
Oh, EX3?
No, 1 and 2.
Oh, 1 and 2, because 3 was on PS2, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, 3 was on PS2.
Right on.
Man, it is hotter than hot. It is hot, hot. I am boiling in here. My week was all right. I started a part-time gig, and it's the first time I've done like standing up for the entire shift in a fair amount of years, like probably 5-6 years. So man, my body is just you and I talked about working in that retail store. I did it for almost 16, 17 years standing all the time on concrete floors. So I think my body would be used to it, but I gotten used to like working from home, being in a chair, kind of being the lord of my own domain. And this is tough. I'm rediscovering like muscles in my legs and my back again from just trying to stand and walk around for an entire shift again. So yeah, man, I'm exhausted. Barely had a chance to play any video games. I've been kind of revisiting Vampire Survivors because I can jump in, jump out. That's about it.
That's what that game was designed for, in my opinion. So it's doing its job. So congratulations on the second gig. I know it's tough out there for a lot of people, so it's good to hear that you got something going on. So
yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'm super thankful for the team at Beach Cat Brewing, who are opening their new location here in 2 days. Apparently, also the same day as the new Trader Joe's we're getting right nearby.
Oh boy, yeah, more traffic from our neighbors up north.
Yeah,
new Trader Joe's.
Yeah, you know where the Best Buy was?
Yeah, over by the Best Buy here on Meridian.
Yeah.
Huh. So finally, for people who don't live in Bellingham, to like derail the very beginning of this video game podcast, we have a Trader Joe's in town that's kind of notorious. It's a little bit small, but the parking lot is tiny. It has a lot of traffic, and it's always packed. So there's been like this call to get a new one for years, and we finally got a new one, and it's opening in like 2 days. So hooray.
That's good. I think it's good that they split it up, because it was the same thing with Costco. Costco was kind of like crowding that area also, but now they literally demolished a whole neighborhood to put up a Costco.
That Costco parking lot, it was on that corner right by that main artery. That was such a pain.
Yeah. No, it was rough. And
anyway, video games, right, my guys?
Economics, civil engineering. That's my SimCity that's talking right there. I'm just doing buzzwords.
There you go.
Anyway, yeah, we got a lot. I saw the syllabus and I was like, "Ooh, there's a lot of news." So let's jump right into this this week of gaming history. One day I'm gonna get a call from ArcSys and be like, stop doing that. One day. But it's okay. They forgot about that game anyway because even though they made it, Konami owns. Anyway, guys, this week in gaming history, let's go ahead. If it's your first time here on this channel, this is the part of the show where we talk about games released throughout history, and also the small tidbits of news that have come out during the year. So, buckle in. We're gonna go back in time. Okay. So first up for today is the 25th of May, which is Friday the 13th, the game. And no, I'm not talking about the Nintendo version where Jason's purple, but in this game, he does have a purple skin to honor that game. So when the success of Dead by Daylight, was kind of like mainstream gaming, so others would like to emulate that. And Friday the 13th was one of those games to come out during that time. Just for the asymmetrical kind of like multiplayer games to be released, kind of like what is that? Evolve, right? So have you guys played Friday the 13th? That's not Friday the 13th.
No, I'm working on it, dude. you went over quick. You can do it now.
You guys played Friday the 13th?
Nah, I haven't really played it myself. I mean, I only played Dead by Daylight like once or twice.
Okay, it's a survivor or killer.
Oh, killer.
Killer. Okay, right on. Yeah, so like I think like in the 2017, 2018, that was a big thing for like asymmetrical multiplayer games. That was like a big thing that was coming up, and the only reason I knew about Dead by Daylight was actually through other streamers. Like I didn't know anything about it, so I watched other streamers play it. And I thought it was cool. It's pretty fun. And then of course with that success, it's very similar to the Dark Souls story where streamers made the game happen. And so like other developers started following that, and in this case they wanted to do another an official game from the movie Friday the 13th. So the game it's probably one of those jank games that everybody just seems to love. Like, I know I love jank games, but it was very honest to the lore of Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff you could pick up. There's even like a museum that you can collect all the collectibles in it. And if you have like buddies to play with and people online, I think this also had proximity chat, which is super cool.
It did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got the
And
gameplay up there for you finally. Sorry about that.
yeah, and then unfortunately, the game had a cease and desist because there was some drama with the ownership of who owned Friday the 13th. Was it the original movie writer or was it like some other like faction? I can't remember, but they had to stop support for the game because of that issue, and they couldn't continue anymore because of that legal situation, which is unfortunate because I think like if you weren't a big fan of Dead by Daylight, this was like your other game to play instead. I know my buddy, he's a big like B movie fan, and he loves this game because it's very true to the nature of Friday the 13th, and being a bunch of camp counselors, right?
Yeah,
So,
I mean that's one of the reasons I liked it too. I loved watching these original movies and that kind of like nostalgia for these old games. I usually not a fan of these kind of games. Like Dead by Daylight was fun for a little bit for me, but I just couldn't get into it. It just wasn't my thing, right?
yeah.
Same with this one at first, but just seeing like you said, the community behind this is the reason this one just kind of like really leapt out there, because like the reactions of some of the like models, like Chad's face when he reacts to things, like,
yeah, it was really
became
funny.
a meme in its own right, and it really became kind of this flash in the pan because so many people were talking about and having fun with it. And it's really a game that you need friends to play
Yeah,
it. And what
100%.
happened to me was the same as usual. I get into it a little bit late,
Mm-hmm.
and none of my friends were playing by that point. So it's something I wish I could have gotten a little bit more into, because I do like the vibe of it. It's kind of a fun nostalgia trip, because I did enjoy like watching the original movie. I remember introducing my wife to this movie. She had never seen movies like these ones. She didn't watch that when she was young, whereas I did.
Yeah.
So it was real funny to like show her that, and then be able to jump in this game and be like, wow, this is actually like pretty well created. Well
Yeah.
created and well timed, it felt like,
Yeah,
with all the survival stuff going on at the time in the industry.
I'm trying to remember. I think Ilphonic was the dev for this, and they actually helped with Predator Hunting Grounds, which is another asymmetrical game. So
Yeah.
there you go. Shout out to Ilphonic, because they're kind of taking licenses and making games out of them, which is like kind of like a missing link. If you notice, they're not really doing that these days anymore, because games are getting kind of expensive to make. So very interesting. I wanted to share that this game also had bots. So if you didn't have
Hey,
to
Andre.
have friends to play with, you can totally just set up a bot lobby to practice. So it's
Yeah.
not the same, of course, because the part of it's just like the fun of chasing your friends around and like or strangers on the internet. But yeah, it did have the option for bots, which is kind of nice to have. Because I don't think Dead by Daylight had bots, so you're kind of stuck matchmaking in that one.
Did you know that they did another asymmetrical survivor horror game,
Delphonic?
in 2024? They did the
Was
Killer
it?
Clowns from
Yeah, I
Outer
was gonna
Space.
say that Killer
Yeah,
Clowns Outer Space. Yeah,
I did not know they did that.
that one looks fun too. That one looks fun as well. Right now, I actually just downloaded Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I'm having a kind of a weird time with that. Like, it is very interesting. So it is. Yeah, check it out sometimes eventually. So I'll read off the other games that came out that day, and there's some notes here as well. But King of the Monsters 2, the next thing in the arcade in 1992 in Japan, if you're your feel of kaiju fighting right there. World Heroes Perfect in the arcade also came out 3 years later in Japan. Thief Deadly Shadows on the PC, Xbox in 2004. Street Fighter Alpha Anthology on the PS2 in 2006 in Japan. That's why you heard Ken's theme there in the beginning. Detroit Become Human on the PS4 in 2018. Alone in the Dark on the PC in 2023. I believe that's like the remake of Alone in the Dark. And wow, he managed to sneak this one in. Lord of the Rings Gollum on the PS5, Xbox, and PC in 2023.
Yeah, I saw that on the this day in gaming history list. I'm like, he doesn't have that on the list. I'm putting that on.
Yeah, and I honestly want a copy of that game because I know how notoriously bad it is, but I feel like it's to be a part of history. I need a copy of that game. So, but yeah, as you see on the screen here, Ace had a note for World Heroes Perfect because he's a huge fan of SNK Fighters. What you got for us, Ace?
So yeah, out of all the different fighting game competitors that were coming out in the mid 90s to rival Street Fighter in the more animated 2D space, even with as much as I loved Fatal Fury, World Heroes kind of took the top spot for me because of just the unique roster of characters. So many of them based on different historical figures, but like caricaturized into these different
that's a
fighting
good
game
word for
characters.
it.
Like Rasputin, for example.
Yeah.
Oh, good lord! But World Heroes Perfect is technically the final game in the series, the final entry, and this was where not only did they refine the gameplay, but they also added the perfect gauge system or the hero gauge system, which is basically supers. So not just enhanced specials like that skirt spin with Rasputin, but actual like full on super attacks which do incredible amounts of damage, or for some have special effects when you actually finish the round with it. Captain Kidd, he has one of his supers. Yeah, his main super. He literally like strings you up by your neck, hangs you from a freaking rope from the top of the screen. But if you actually finish the round with it, his vulture flies in from off screen and just pecks at you for the rest of the time that you're on.
Kind of like Eternal Champions. Like if you do certain things right, it comes that way.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, you know what's wild is this Rasputin character because he's kind of funny. So, it's and I never realized that these were actually like characters in real life, right? I mean, clearly the guy in the right's Hulk Hogan, right? But and the Rasputin is I believe like a myth. He's not mythological, but he's like a folk. Isn't he like a folk tale or something in Russia? Or no, he was like also a leader, wasn't he? Like yeah. So I never realized that. But where does the football player come into play? What's his name?
Oh, Joe Montana.
Oh, okay, gotcha. But he just had the evil eyes, like it's from what I remember.
God, here we go.
There we go. So this is their version of Street Fighter 2, like Turbo Championship Edition, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, right? So it's the last iteration of that fighting game that they have. Yeah. So the other thing that I kind of wanted to kind of ask you this, like, where has World Heroes been? They're doing Fatal Fury. They got King of Fighters back. Samurai Shamsho even has come back, right? Now we're missing Last Blade and World Heroes. What's you think they're gonna make a World Heroes?
Well, last time we saw anything World Heroes related was Neo Geo Battle Coliseum.
Oh boy, that game was the SNK version of Capcom Fighting Jam collection.
But like it had, like it was great. It was great because it brought back Hanzo, Fuma, and Mudman from
I
World
like
Heroes.
Mudman's cool. But yeah, hopefully we see something from SNK. They dig this out of the graveyard in their catalog, because the SNK does have a robust catalog just like Capcom does, and but they don't have the notoriety like Capcom does. They kind of have to work with Capcom to get these guys back.
Yeah,
Would be interesting if they did Capcom versus SNK 3 and World Heroes characters were in it. That'd be super fun.
that would be awesome.
All right, move on to the next day here on the 26th. What we got? We got another crossover. Speaking of Capcom, we got Namco cross Capcom on the PS2 in 2005. Never made it to the United States. I don't think it did. This was strictly Japan, and you had to import this bad boy. Now I don't know why, because it's so many. There's so many franchises here. Maybe because was there voice acting in this? That's probably
Yes,
the
there
reason.
was. There was
Yeah.
an extensive amount of voice acting.
Right. So I don't know too much about this. I was gonna leave it up to you, but from what I recall, it was like a Final Fantasy Tactics style.
Yeah, it played it was like a combination game because like when you actually start each chapter, the battles are carried out on a isometric tactical layout.
Mhm.
But then once you actually like go unit to unit, then it actually goes into practically a one-on-one, like 1v1 fighting game. And you do different combinations of like one of the 4 directional buttons and the confirm to actually do your character's attacks and specials and link them together for each attack.
Sounds like 2 games in one, kind of.
Yep. In fact, when I mentioned earlier that I was getting back into playing some PS1 and PS2 favorites, I picked this up, got the English patch, which we're seeing on the screen right now, and sat down and started playing that.
Yeah, and I feel like this should be re-released in some way or form as a remaster, because this is a missed opportunity here.
Oh,
Could be a thing. Wait, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Also, for the folks that watch my stream, the arranged version of Captain Commando's theme from this very game is what I use as the intermission music for recently.
Nice. Yeah, with their their new relationship with Capcom and SNK, or even with Capcom's new relationship with like other companies and be able to work with them. Like, for example, we've never seen a King of Fighters character in a Street Fighter game before, and vice versa, right? Like, aside from Capcom SVC Chaos. So I feel like now these companies should be getting together and kind of like looking back at their catalog to kind of like I guess to measure interest, right? So kind of like this game right here. Like, I feel like this right here, if you buy this and if a lot of people buy into this, they're gonna be like, well, people want to play Capcom versus SNK 3, because this is it right here. The people are playing it for that one specific game.
Yep.
So I think that they should release this for Capcom and Namco if they have another project with us. Well, but they did. It's called Street Fighter Cross Tekken, but you know what I'm saying down the road. So,
and also, this was actually the first game that I purchased and imported off of PlayAsia back in 2009.
Oh, nice. Can't remember which game I imported first. Had to been like some sort of fighting game or something.
But yeah, while the US unfortunately didn't get this game, there are games that are technically follow-ups, and that would be Project Cross Zone 1 and 2.
Yeah, that did come out on a 3DS. So,
yep.
If you wanted like a little bit of taste of this game, check that game out. So, let's see here. All right, other games that came out on the 26th, going back to all the way to 1995 on the Super Nintendo, Stargate, which from what I remember was a pretty decent game, and I think it was devved by the guys that did LJN. They weren't LJN anymore, but I'll double check on that. On the arcade Ninja Masters came out in 1996, which I believe was another SNK beat 'em up from what I recall. Speaking of crossover, Cross Edge on the PS3 in 2009 was another like light crossover RPG mixed with I think Darkstalkers and NIS, Nipponichi of America created an RPG. I don't know too much about it. I do own a copy, but I don't know too much about it. Infamous also came out on the PS3 in 2009. Watch Dogs came out on the PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 4, or is it 3 on 2014? I think it's 4. I think both at the same time. And Ultra Street Fighter 2, the final challengers on the Switch in 2017. Not a lot that came out on that Monday. So Nicholas, Watch Dogs. I know you were big on this game when we were working at the store.
Yeah, I was. And I definitely wanted to highlight this one just because it was kind of notorious too in the industry when it first came out. I don't know if you two remember the big kind of blowback this game got when it launched and why. Ace, do you know?
Why Watch Dogs got blowback?
Yeah, right when it first launched, at least.
Not right offhand.
The big problem was the E3 trailer. So that showed this amazing, like super in-depth, great graphics, gameplay of you running around this open world and interacting on a large scale. And then the game releases, and it's nothing like the E3 trailer that we got. So it was one of those really like shining examples of just like not matching the trailer that we got to see and people's expectations just being completely blown out. So I was in on the hype train, not just the fact that, James and I have said multiple times we both grew up in Chicago. This first game takes place in Chicago. So I really wanted to dive in. I love the open world aspect of it, and the hacking in this was really cool. That's what sold me on it. It looked incredible, looked like it was gonna be super interesting, and then the game comes out and it's just kind of like, that's not right.
the bullshot bait and switch.
Yeah, it was definitely a game that had a lot of potential, but the blowback right at the beginning just never set it up for success. So I will say, like, to this day, it's a very different game, I feel like, because I still like the hacking. I remember the driving section in this is notoriously bad as well. I hated the driving in this game. I remember one mission in particular, I had to hide from the cops. I could not beat. I had to put it down for like a week and then come back to it later because I kept failing the mission because the car controls were so ass. Like, just to say it, it's ass. It was bad. But I just remember like really loving the idea behind this game and really, really wanting to like it. And there's aspects certainly I liked. I mean, it spawned a couple sequels. Legion, on the other hand, is not great.
It's a different game.
It's a different game. And James, I remember you playing Watch Dogs 2 on stream. And I remember watching you play that too. And that one definitely had some redeeming qualities as well. So it's just something where a lot of promise, and then rug pull when the game came out compared to the trailer, and it's just another cautionary tale. But I really do think it had a lot of potential. Like I said, I love the hacking, the mini games with it, the way to like search your stuff ahead of time. This was before Assassin's Creed kept doing that thing with like the eagle, and you can kind of mark the bad guys and see where they are. Like, this game to me was like pioneered that. I just remember that very clearly in my head. But yeah, man, it's kind of a trip to go back and see this. I do remember as well, there's a big like marketing push for this leading up to it. Like, a lot of celebrities. Aisha Tyler's in the game, for example. Like, she's an NPC walking around. She voices that character. It's her herself. Because the idea is that you go around, you can kind of scan people and you get their ID, like their like personal information on your little readout there in front. So it was kind of funny to like see celebrities walking around in the game too that were like really big into gaming. And you're just like, oh cool, I ran into the person, and they were able to call out to it. But yeah, like I said, man, some cool stuff. Just kind of remember when it launched.
Yeah, I had a pretty good experience with this game. I played the first one before I went to the second one. I was kind of wanting to experience that. I love the vigilante type kind of story behind it, right? Getting revenge and kind of like it's a murder mystery kind of thing.
Yeah, I feel like the community is kind of split on the main character. Like, he's very broody PTSD and just like a little like too hard into it, like almost to a comical effect. But at the same time, like, he has a really good motivation behind him, and I thought it was interesting. It just may have been like a little heavy-handed at certain points.
Honestly, it's how Korea cinema is filmed. It's like a Korean revenge movie, right? If you guys ever watch Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance and all those,
of course.
Like, old boy, this would have been a good old boy movie or old boy game if it was more visceral, right? So just think about that. The unique thing that I remember about this game was that they made like an app on your phone or something where you could like you could help out the player hack certain things as they were moving around the city. And like, for example, if you're being chased by the cops, like you can somebody can jump on the phone and be like, hey man, can you help me out with the traffic lights or whatever? And they can change that for you. I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was one of the pitches for this game, was like the hacking.
Because I remember they put like the little bollards that would come up out of the ground to stop cars. Someone could hit that and it'd pop out in the game. Yeah, again, a lot of promise that just didn't end up like really being what was promised to us.
to me, this game, Ace, if you're like curious about it, it's like GTA would focus, because GTA is pretty open ended, but this game you have a mission to do, and like stuff to like not to like fuck around in the city, but like to actually you have like people to kill that you have revenge on, right?
Right.
So,
and considering what you guys were mentioning about the about the whole app thing, and how people outside the game can actually jump on the app and help out, that would be a great mechanic to like wrap into crowd control on Twitch.
Yeah, and it's just one of those games, like I said, it's like they were trying new things that are like easily can be done now.
Yeah, that's a really good example of like certain things that maybe were a little ahead of their time. Not to say that the entire title is, but there were things these devs were trying that was like nowadays, like with the benefit of hindsight, like, oh, that was really cool, or oh, that could have been done this way, like you said, Ace. And I remind me, chat, I know there's a few who are talking about this right now. I feel like this is one of those games, because of that E3 blowback was the reason we started seeing the little subtitles on a lot of E3 trailers after this point that said, in-game engine,
not actual,
and not actual gameplay. Like, I feel this was one of the reasons for that. I want to say, 2014, it's 11 years ago by this point, but
this an Anthem, 100%. This an Anthem. So, all right. So other games that come out on the 26th here. Did I read that? I already read that.
Yep,
off.
you did. Let's move on.
Right. Moving on to the next one.
Moving on up.
All right. 5/27 Dragon Quest, or Dragon Warrior, depending on which area of the world you live in, came out on the NES in 1986 in Japan. Arguably started the whole thing with Dragon Quest Heroes, Dragon Quest this, Dragon Quest that, Dragon Quest Builders, right? This is where it started. So wanted to celebrate that. But also one of the, I think probably one of the reasons how we got a Chrono Trigger, because Akira Toriyama did do the art for Dragon Quest. So I feel that spilt over in the Enix category of them inspiration. So yeah, celebrate Dragon Quest. Have you guys played any Dragon Quest game aside the mainline Dragon Quest game, I should say?
Mainline, I believe the last one I played was 8.
Oh yeah, the one that's on the PlayStation 2, right?
Yeah,
that's a good one. That was a good one. By you, Nick?
No, I never played these original ones. RPGs and stuff like this wasn't really my jam when I was a kid. I played a lot of like, I guess I say RPGs and I'm immediately about to mention I had a gold Kart Zelda, but I had a lot of like Mario 3, TMNT, the arcade game. Like, those were the games that I had in my household. I didn't have a lot of like these Japanese RPGs or turn-based combat. That's one of the reasons I was like super late to get into that genre, like way later, that I had an interest for it. Like, I'm talking, I got into them in like the 360 generation. The PS2, I played Final Fantasy X, but then like Lost Odyssey was the next one I really jumped deep in, and then I would go back. I never got a chance to play them. I know they're beloved. It's the same reason I've never gone back and played like any of the original Final Fantasies. Like, I've checked them out to get a little bit of like understanding about it. I've watched friends play it, and of course, being connected to the industry so much as we are nowadays, like, I've got a fair understanding of it, but never played it myself. So it's really cool to see this. Plus, I recognize the slimes. I mean, I remember when some of the later Dragon Quests, super iconic. I remember when they made a slime controller too. You'd flip it upside down and you'd play the controller on the bottom of it. Like, I remember seeing that in the store too. That was freaky.
With their beady little eyes.
Yeah, just judging you.
Also, this one I decided to feature because they are Dragon Quest 3 was just re-released on PlayStation 5 for, I think, on the Switch as well. And they have plans to release 1 and 2 HD remaster down the in October, and they're giving it the Octopath treatment, which is super cool.
Okay.
Right? Because I did get this like really cool collector's edition of Dragon Quest 3 HD, right? And these are actually this is a stand-up acrylic set of all the characters. So that's super cool if you ever want to do like kind of like cinematography with the 2D pixel art, right? Super fun. Look at these big bad boys over here. Pretty crazy. So very cool. And it's like
and wait, Scorpio played the one on the GBA and Builders 2?
Builders 2 was like Minecraft, which is super cool as well. And that's kind of why I didn't play Minecraft. I ended up playing Dragon Quest Builders because it had more personality, right? So
Yeah,
that's kind of what story.
Meanwhile, as I'm sure y'all have probably guessed by this point, I have played and owned both Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2.
Yeah, to no one's surprise.
No one's surprised.
No one's surprised by that.
Like, to the surprise of absolutely not a single fucking person in attendance.
That was a really fun game. I played the first one and I enjoyed the characters. I've never played the second one, but I do want to down the road. It's part of my to-do list. But the first one I had enjoyed. I rented it from the store when I was there.
The second one has a martial arts moveset, so I had to get it on.
Oh yeah, you're okay. Now we get it. We get it now. Other games that come out that day was Tokimeki Memorial on the TurboGrafx CD in 1996. I don't remember that game, so if you guys know what that game is, please enlighten us. In Japan, my personal favorite Ace Combat game, Ace Combat 3 Electrosphere, came out on the PlayStation in 1999. Brute Force on the Xbox in 2003. Lost Planet Extreme Condition Colonies Edition. That's right. That's the name of the game on the 360 in 2008. Ace Combat Infinity on the PS3 in 2014. It's like Ace Combat Day. Also, Dragon Quest Heroes 2 came out on the PS3, PS4, Vita in 2016 in Japan. So a lot of redundancy, a lot of like consistency. So which is super cool for the industry. I feel like they know that they released those games during that date, so they like make the sequels down the road to be released the same. Maybe it's a superstitious thing, maybe, right? So super cool. Also in 2009, 38 Studios, founded by MLB pitcher Kurt Schilling, that's a funny name, acquired the development studio Big Huge Games Inc., known for the rise of nation strategy games after THQ put them up for sale. Together, the team would go on to create Kingdoms of Amalur: Reckoning, which had caused an infamous blow-up just a few years later. That was a really good game, in my opinion, for what it was. So,
yeah, that whole situation and why I wanted to highlight this day in gaming history was because that game in particular, kind of like when it first came out, a lot of people were like, it's okay, but it's rough around the edges. And then like as time went on, people realized it's actually pretty good. It was being pretty heavily compared to like Fable at the time. I remember a lot of people kind of bringing that up. And then they did the Re-Reckoning release later.
Yeah, that's right.
And people ended up playing that and like still like really liking it. So it's really sad that had lost so much potential. If people aren't familiar with it, like the whole issue and why this was such a big blow up that James was kind of hinting at the end there was with 38 Studios. So Kurt Schilling came in and wanted to create like this Microsoft-esque behemoth in the gaming industry, and because of his presence and his notoriety and ability, he took a bunch of tax incentives and moved to a state to get this thing made, and then it ended up just blowing up in his face, and it took them a while to get like everyone's paychecks out. It was like a really big video game failure.
I think I remember watching the clips of this like documentary on the story.
It was just super interesting to see someone who came in and didn't really know much about the gaming industry and sold a bunch of people on this thing, and then just kind of underestimating the amount of time and money it takes to do this, especially when Amalur had a bunch of features. Like that was a really big open world feature rich game. Like it had a lot of, if I remember right, because it's been a little bit since I've reconnected with this one, but if I remember right, it had a lot of feature creep because they kept trying to add more to it. So this thing just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they had to cut things, they had to get it out. There's a bunch of money lost, and then he pulled up stakes and went to a different state because of the incentives. Like, oh man, it was just a thing, and it just caused this game with a lot of potential just to kind of like fall to the wayside.
And see, once again, another lesson of how money ruins video game development.
This one is more of like a skill issue, I'll say.
Yeah, that's true. No, it's true. It was like, it's kind of mismanagement of like, you have like all the pieces together, you just didn't know how to like kind of light them up, right? I think also the story was written by R.A. Salvatore. I don't know if you guys knew that. So
I didn't, but that's awesome.
Yeah, I remember in the original collector's edition, they had like some sort of like scroll or something to note that, which was one of the big selling points. So probably why it costs a little bit more, right, for them to make, because it's written by a D&D.
Probably.
So, but yeah. All right, let's go to the 28th here.
Foos.
All right. So my choice was Fuse. Nobody knows what Fuse is? All right. That's what I expected.
I remember Fuse.
So it's an Insomniac game, right? But when you think of Insomniac, you don't think of Fuse. Think of other games that they've made.
You think of other better games.
Yeah. Fuse was a how do I put this? A third-person shooter that had a variety of different characters you could choose from. I kind of considered it as like the A-Team, but like in a video game. Every character was different, and then it's just like how you wanted to play the mission, right? Kind of like that. I think it's super underrated. I do remember having good experience with this game and having a good time with this game. Wasn't perfect because it is EA, right? It kind of had the same like feeling that of remember not Shadowrun, the other game that Syndicate. Your Syndicate felt like should have been a good game, but like you can tell like nobody cared, so they just made the game because of the name. Fuse was like very similar to that, but there was a new IP that they're trying to do. But it was just like, well, it's super new, and I don't think anybody's going to really care too much about this game. But they
kind of like Haze,
and it, ironically, 4 letters and 1 word. So, and it was EA's version of Haze, Fuse. Nah, I just remember it being pretty fun. Do you have gameplay of this stuff?
Yeah, I got it up for you.
Okay. So yeah, it was like a cover shooter as well.
It really was leaning into like something to Battle Gears of War. I'm just reading up a little bit on it now. I had no idea it had a horde mode as well, like straight up like
because nobody played this game, but me. I actively like during these years of 2013 to 2015, I actively went out and looked for games nobody played because like part of working at a game store is to play games that the people don't know about. That's how people knew about Binary Domain, right? Because I played them and I was like, it's actually a pretty fun game. Go check it out. You should buy a copy, right? So
if Twitch was around, he'd be the one with one person playing. He'd be there.
Yeah, that was me. or the guy that never stopped playing.
Right. Yeah. 24-hour stream, Fuse.
Like this game looked pretty good for what it is. I mean, look at it. This is a PS3 game.
Yeah.
360 game.
Yeah, it looks great, but when you have the Insomniac name tied to it, and then you get this, and you're like, "Oh, this is not like an Insomniac game, and not maybe the Insomniac quality." It kind of suffers. I don't have any sales figures on this, but apparently it's a critical and commercial failure for EA.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like they did zero marketing in this game. I'm pretty sure I only found out about it because we just had a copy of it. Like that's the reason why I knew about this game, right? And I implore everybody to check it out if you like third-person shooters. And I think this game also has co-op, so play with a buddy. Just play it with Jacob and Izzy. Check it out. Fuse, everybody. All right.
Maybe I should see if I could hook up with Thomas Duder and do a review for the hooligans.
Bro, I'm telling you, I think this game is like in a treasure chest. This is a treasure of a game that like no one knew that it was treasure, right? So for what it is, like it, I wouldn't pay $60 for this. 100% would pay 20 bucks.
But for what it is, it does look solid.
Yeah. It looks solid. I wonder how much of this is just like current. This is in
remember
1080p 60. Like I remember. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was like, you got to remember, like, if you have a choice to play Fuse or whatever other game that came out that year and time, like, this is probably stacked up against Call of Duty. This is like peak Call of Duty era, right?
Yeah, the reason I brought up the visuals, like, just watching this now, like, the characters kind of blend in a little bit with everything else. It's not very distinct. It doesn't feel like it stands out much. And this is just a snippet. I don't want to like
this is the
hard stuff that people worked on, but it just feels like it doesn't have a lot of personality to it. And maybe that's part of the reason. I'm sure I can look at some reviews and someone said,
look at that. He's like doing the Reinhardt shield. See that?
15 years ago or something.
Look at that. Yeah, and that's what I mean. They all had their distinct like style of play, right? One was more tanky, one was a healer, one was like a sniper.
So Evolve?
Yeah, Evolve. I would say Ace, like, do you remember Winback?
Mm-hmm.
I think this is like the non-Japanese version of Winback, right? Like you're like a team that have to like have different skills, right? To do a mission. Yeah, look at that. They're not like actually that much distinct, but they're there, right? So check it out, Fuse. That's what we got. All right, other games that come out on the 28th here. I didn't realize this was a shmup. I thought it was a first-person rail shooter. Radiant Silvergun came out in the arcade in 1998 in Japan. I know what my next purchase is going to be because I saw a collector's edition of it in our local store. So, Alien versus Predator on the PC in 1999, and I'm assuming that's the first-person shooter, right? Dark Cloud on the PS2 in 2001. Tokyo Extreme Racer Zero on the PS2 in 2001. If you like Initial D but you can't afford it, get that game instead.
You have Initial D at home?
Yeah, very much so. Dynasty Warriors 6 Empires on the PS3 360 in 2009 in Japan. Grid 2 on the PS3 in 2013. And Splatoon came out on the Wii U in 2015 in Japan. Also in 2003, a little bit of gaming console history for y'all. Died this day when the 3DO company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Their now notorious console had failed when PlayStation entered the market, causing them to change their game dev and publishing only. Their subsidies would close, and Might and Magic would be acquired by Ubisoft and Army Men by Take-Two Interactive. So that's what happened to Might and Magic. Because I was wondering, like, where it went for a while.
That's where it went for a while. I remember seeing a couple things with 3DO, but Army Men, I remember playing that back in the day and seeing the 3DO logo on there. And then, of course, working in a retro store, eventually you start to get to know like the 3DS console or 3DO console. I had no idea as a kid because I was way outside my price range. But yeah, man, it was sad to see another company gone.
I remember having
outside a lot of people's price range, though.
Yeah, I wonder
why it failed.
I remember having a hard time distinguishing the Philips CDI and a 3DO. I was like, "What's the same thing?" Like I couldn't tell the difference as a kid. You know, one was just a different brand name. Let's see here. Okay, next one. 29th, we got. Oh man, if you guys haven't played this game, you've been sleeping under a crack of kryptonite. So, Superman, the new Superman Adventures on the N64 came out in 1999, also known as Superman 64. I don't understand why the name was so long. I just called it Superman 64 back in the day. So, gee, guys, why do we have this featured? I wonder why. Anybody?
Notoriously one of the worst video games ever made.
Yes, it's basically a racing game. That's exactly what it is.
And I've got to be honest, man, a part of like a little bit of internet history, like AVGN when he did his video for this, like put him on the map as like that's probably one of his most popular videos by far, and for good reason. Like it is trash. It is
apparently Smoking Scorpio loves this game, according to his comment.
Horrible memory.
Yeah, it's not great. Notoriously bad. Bad controls. Like if they were, it's like the devs were like, let's make a Superman game. Let's see how do we make you feel like you're playing Superman? Make him fly through rings. That's it. Literally that.
So
let's give the people some
PTSD. Turned Superman into Spyro.
Yeah, it wasn't great, and man, I remember testing it out in the store because when we test out consoles, right? And I was like, man, how did the people pay $80 for this game? Oh my god, it was rough, from what I recall. I bet you this sealed is really expensive. So I don't know if you're a DC collector and Superman fan, you probably have this game, but not played it. So and you've dodged the bullet.
If you're a masochist who just wants to keep a piece of gaming history, this was one of those games I remember like why I hated the N64 joystick. It was just because of this game.
Yeah, but like you can't say that when you're playing Star Fox though. If it was really good on
that's the thing though, is that I would play other games and realize later on that it wasn't that, but I just remember this had to be one of the first games I played. I remember getting my 64 and we got 1080 snowboarding and
Jesus Christ, this game.
I forget something else, that same one, but
Snowboard Kids.
Then I didn't get 2 snowboard games to start. I think it was Mario Kart. I think I had like Mario Kart and 1080 snowboarding were the first 2 that I got with my console. But my friend had this game, and I remember playing it before I got my 64.
Bro,
This was like one of my
happening?
first experiences playing it, and it made me hate the joystick.
How in the
tomfoolery?
how
Uh,
do
uh,
you make a Superman game look as dry?
Yo,
And
this game
oh,
needs some
Lex
seasoning.
wins.
cardboard.
Yeah. Also, when you lose, it just says Lex wins, and that pisses you off even more.
Listen, this game is like the evolutionary equivalent of a stale end piece of bread.
Bruh. You don't even like. This is the combat. He's fighting dudes in suits, like zoot suit guys. Come on,
Good Lord.
that man is dead. He got punched by Superman.
It's just like
Oh, he just
uppercut and then like
disintegrated.
the axe handle.
Yeah, it's not great. So let's talk about the other games that came out this day.
But let's leave this on in the background so we can watch
Yeah.
like, Scorpio like in chat start.
Oh, I'm sure
frothing.
he's raging, seething right now. I remember this game on the Genesis, Kid Chameleon, in 1992 in Japan. It was the Genesis version of like Little Nemo and the Dream Master, where you could like turn into different creatures and have different abilities. Super cool. Let's see, Crazy Taxi 2. Crazy Taxi 2 on the Dreamcast in 2001. Mario Party 8 on the Wii in 2007. Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U in 2014. That's notorious in Japan. And Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Edition came out basically on everything in 2018. In addition, Outer Wilds also was released in the Xbox One in 2019. So that's a good one, Outer Wilds.
It is.
All right, let's see here. Oh my god, what is he doing? What's that for?
I just saw like a comment looking up on Reddit when kind of just like seeing what some people were saying about this game, but someone says it looks like an alpha, and it really does.
It does. It's so bland, and I think the reason why it looks like that, like they said this in the storyline, he got zapped into some weird cyber world, like emulated Metropolis, and I was like, that's a shitty excuse for bad talent. Like come on now, come on, bro.
I just love Luther's just like, if you want to save your friends, solve this puzzle.
Yeah, fly through these rings, Superman. That's right, you can't do that. Yeah,
I've got you now.
Jesus. All right, on the 30th of May, my choice, and actually one of the coolest games I played that I didn't know Bethesda made back in 2011 was Hunted the Demon's Forge. Okay, chat panel, have you guys ever heard of this game?
Oh yeah, of course. I remember the cover art.
Yeah, this
game. Heard of it. Remember the cover art. Never played.
Okay, so the idea of this game is co-op, and it's done in a way where it's almost like it's like you know how like they made what is that new game that came out, Split Fiction, right?
Hold on, wait a minute. Is this that game where in order to heal, you have to like pick the girl up and
no, that's Knight's Contract.
Oh wait, no, yeah, that's Knight's
Contract. Yeah, we did that. We did that last week, Ace. Come on now.
Look, I had to work on Memorial Day. My brain is still fried.
All good, man. But yeah, so Hunted was like you played the guy with the sword. He was like the tank damage dealer, right? While the girl with the bow was more like it played more like a third person like shooter, and she was more stealth. And there would be certain areas in the game where like, oh, for me to get through this door, she'd have to shoot this lock, and it would fall down, and the bridge would fall down so I can cross. So it was like their attempt at that, kind of like No Way Out, and Split Fiction. During the time, what surprised me that it was a Bethesda game and nobody really knows this game outside of Skyrim and Oblivion, right?
Well, it was published by them. It was actually built by In Exile.
Okay, but yeah, it's I think super underrated. It was definitely like, to me, it was a 2A game. It definitely was lacking money behind it. You can tell, but like at the same time, it was like, I guess like for the time, I never played anything like it. It's really meant to be played with another person, but you were with a AI if you played it by yourself. But I just like the whole thing, how it was like like a fantasy adventure, and like teamwork was really like the main concept of the game, and two different play styles. So if you're like, I'm more of a shooter kind of person, you play the girl with the bow, and if you're more,
I'm starting to see what some people would play this game for.
right. I mean, this is 2011, right? So It kind of reminded me of Demon, the PS2 game for D&D, like Demon's Blade or something, Demon's Forge. No, this is Demon's Forge. It was another like third person game.
Yeah, I'm getting heavy Gears of War kind of
Mhm.
vibes to this, like that over the shoulder kind of
And this
thing.
was the era of the over
Yeah,
the shoulder.
yeah.
You
I'm just trying to like capture the glory of some of the major titles during that era. PS3 360, there was a lot of games that came out that kind of just felt like what the popular ones were.
Mhm.
There's always going to be that, but I just remember from that era specifically, there was a lot of it.
Well,
Um, I'm reading up a little bit more on it because I had no idea this was 2011. It got pretty decent reviews, and it looks like a lot of people confirmed. Oh, yep, described it as Gears of War meets Diablo. There's
yeah.
like a looter aspect to it.
Yep. Yeah,
Huh.
it kind of like took a route of like it didn't take one of the games to the extreme, so it kind of left it with a basic kind of experience, right? So but I would just remember having a good time with this. I would love to see a remaster of this, and I'd play it again because it does not have a PS4, uh, Xbox One version of this game. So
So it's super interesting, like reading up some of the like Matt Finley was the president of In Exile at the time, was saying that the game mechanics are based specifically on his team's own experience playing co-op games, and the resulting like ideas they got from it were like trying to build up the genre step by step. So like the big goal of this was like redefining co-op,
yep.
and if it did well enough, they were planning the sequel apparently.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, it felt like I was playing like that game, like No Way Out, where it's absolutely supposed to be co-op, right? So, and this is why I think it's once again one of those games that came out before like its time, and
Do you
before it
know if it
became
had
popular.
did it have couch co-op?
I'm not sure. I would have to open up my copy or
Because there was
find my
so
copy.
many people like jonesing for couch co-op games. I remember right around that time. That would have been
Oh,
cool, but
cool. We can look it up as I read through the other games that came out on the 30th. Another Ace Combat game came out on the PlayStation. Ace Combat 2 came out in 1997 in Japan. Destroy All Humans came out on mobile in 2005. Right, Mario Kart 8 came out again on the Wii U, but in this time it came out in the US in 2014. The Forest, ooh, I've played that game for a little bit, and man, you got to play that game in like segments. Came out on the PC early access in 2014, and also the remake of System Shock came out on the PC and Linux in 2023. Also in 2005, Massive Development is shut down by Joe Wood Entertainment. Massive had been known mostly in Europe for well-received Equinox titles. The big noteworthy bit, third game Equinox, the Angel's Tears that they were developing for the PS2 was finished at the time, but Joe Wood pulled the plug and never released it. I mean, why not? It's already done. I mean, I guess there's like distribution costs, I guess. So that's unfortunate. All right, did we find out if it has a couch co-op or no?
Reading through a review on Co-Optimus, one of my favorite websites to use whenever we were trying to look up co-op games back in the day when someone walk in the door and be like, is this game co-op? We just
Yeah,
pull
I
up
remember that.
Co-Optimus. It says there was a couch co-op, but you had to play through the tutorial to get the ability to like unlock it or select it even. Because if you hit start game, it boots right into single player. The tutorial is 27 minutes in length.
Oh, it might be like a pre-game thing. That's why.
So you and your
Yeah,
co-op partner, there is couch co-op apparently in this game.
yeah.
Apparently you have to play through the like almost a half an hour of tutorial to play it with someone in co-op. So your co-op buddy's just sitting there watching you play for this first little bit.
Man, this like we have Stone Cold Steve Austin at home. This is amazing. I love this. Hey, Ace, if there's a game that you and Duder need to play, it's this one together, right here. This is a bang.
Doesn't have enough Muso.
You can make it. You can make it more Musa.
You can make it Muso.
All right. Okay. Where did the image to this one go? All right. I have
Oh,
to find it now. It disappeared. Oh, it's over here.
in the other corner. It replaced you.
All right, so Final Doom. Dark Ages had come out, so I wanted to feature the last Doom game to come out on PC of that era, and in 1996. So, and also interesting box. I love this. So, and because we don't see these things anymore. Includes Doom 1 and Doom 2 episodes. I think this, like, I think from what I remember, I'm not without looking it up. This was Doom 1, Doom 2, and then like the last chapter to top off the series. right? It wasn't really like its own game, but it was like a combination of all the games with like another DLC to top off to finish off the story. So, has anybody played Final Doom?
I have, just because it's a bunch of just episodes.
Yeah,
it's just
right.
basically just WADs that people play.
Yeah.
I remember the Plutonia experiment. It's kind of notorious. It was I watch him a lot lately, but if you ever get to catch Civi on YouTube, he plays through a lot of these kind of games. Ace, if you haven't watched him, he plays a lot of build engine stuff, and he has an episode on Rise of the Triad. You definitely need to watch, just because he vocalizes a lot of like the things that I'm hearing in my head, and he just vocalizes it perfectly, just like how shit it is, or how much fun you had playing it as a kid, and just like going in with like today's lens of just like, is this good, is it's not? And it's great for this because he plays through every single WAD and like reviews it. He's like, oh, this is great, this is awful, this is terrible, I hate this. So it's just really funny. But yeah, I just remember like this was that era where I remember getting a bunch of maps for Duke Nukem, and it was kind of the same thing. I'd buy, it would be like this like floppy disk or CD that would show up as just patch with just maps, and I wouldn't know any better as a kid. I didn't know it was just like maps. I thought it was just another version of the game. So I think Final Doom was the same thing for me. As I bought it, I was like, oh, it's going to be like more Doom, it's going to be great. It's not. It's not done by id. It's published by them, but it's just, I think it was Team TNT did this one. They just put a bunch of megawads in it. I learned something that day.
Yeah. All right, let's see here. Yeah, it's there's just so much Doom. It's like hard to like kind of like take in all the versions, right? So, but I also thought when I was a kid that this was the last version of it. The games can't get any better than this. Final Doom, right? That was me, my pure innocent mind.
Pure innocent mind.
Other games that come out this day on the 31st, Blood on the DOS in 1997 as well. Road Rash 3D on the PlayStation in 1998. Star Ocean: The Second Story on the PlayStation in 1999. Worms Armageddon on the PC in 1999. Darkstalkers 3 on the PlayStation in 2001. This is the day of the PlayStation, apparently. Way of the Samurai on the PS2 in 2002, and Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle on the Switch and PS4 in 2018 in Japan. And I do have a note here from Ace for Star Ocean.
Now, Star Ocean, the Second Story was actually the first game in the series that I had played, and it was around that era where you had JRPGs with 2D sprite characters on a pre-rendered or a 3D map. So it had that same charm to it, like playing Xenogears, for example.
Yep, thanks.
But what really hit me was not just the real-time combat, but also how the special attacks and abilities that your characters have evolve and get stronger and more powerful as you use them. And you could eventually put together some like really broken combinations where you can stun lock enemies or even bosses. Like this was one of those games where you could really get into just breaking it through the mechanics, and it was so much fun to do so. So when the most recent port / remake released on the PS5, Star Ocean: The Second Story R, I hopped right on that, and it felt like I hadn't missed a step.
It's only better than it was before.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. And now, is this would you argue that this game plays very similar to like the Tales games?
Yeah, I would argue that it does play very similar to it. Not on a left to right 2D plane, but that sort of active combat.
Yeah, not just turn-based, but you're actually like participating in the movement, stuff like that.
Yep. Oh, another thing about the mechanics in the Second Story is that you could actually if you actually time two characters, two spellcasters actually casting magic at the same time, you can combine their effects as well.
That's pretty cool.
And there was one that was pretty much like game breaking right from the start, which I believe is like, it was one of the Earth spells. So I think it was like Earthglaive and Acid Rain, because Acid Rain just just demolishes enemy defense. It doesn't do damage. It literally just cuts their defense to almost nothing.
And then the Earth is high damage.
Yeah.
And so on that note, because you're bringing it up now, Ace, I wonder, just because I haven't played them all and you've got a fair amount of experience with it, what is the best Star Ocean game?
And why is it till the end of time? I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know.
Chat, feel free to let this man know which one's the best.
I never played any of them.
Actually, I am kind of inclined to agree.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, three was like the most. 3 was pretty much like the most refined that Star Ocean was, and on top of that, there was still. I think the only thing that it didn't do that the previous Star Oceans and certain later ones did was having dual protagonists and multiple viewpoints that you could experience the same story from.
Yeah, my buddy Jack, he is a big Star Ocean fan, and he likes 2 a lot. As I think that's the most popular one, right?
Which is also why the most recent one, Star Ocean: The Divine Force, is actually pretty solid, because it takes all of the refinements that the series had basically built up especially from 1 through 3, and then goes back to the dual protagonist setup with Raymond and Leticia.
Which Star Ocean is that you're talking about?
Divine Force.
Star Ocean: The Divine Force.
The one before that, Faithlessness and Integrity or something like that, right? He said that one was super easy. Like, you can beat the game with 1 button.
That one was also considered the Star Ocean that damn near killed the series.
Oh, well, if it was that easy.
From what I'm seeing online, and chat, feel free to hop on us or in the comments after you watch the VOD. But according to a lot of things that I'm seeing here, not only on Reddit, but the Gamer did a ranking as well. Their number one's a trick, and I'll tell you why in a second. But basically, the second story tends to win out as everyone's favorite. It is, like James said, the most popular, at least according to this. But if you're a fan of that and you want to play like a more modern version, their number one is actually Star Ocean: The Second Story R. So the R is that remake that came out in 2023.
Yeah.
That had a bunch of like system enhancements, like upgraded modern JRPG, like fishing, overworld map was revamped, and a new like revived soundtrack. Yeah. So if you're like, for someone like me who like heard about this and wanted to try this out, I'm thinking like trying out the Second Story R might be a good one. And just looking at like some of the screenshots, like it looks great. It's a really cool, like 3D upgraded, like looking game
like
in terms of the background. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'll have to give that one a shot.
The PSP version, which is you can buy on your like PS4, I think, or PS5, is also the first one. That's like the enhanced version of the first game, which we got re-released on the PSP. You can play that on modern consoles as well, which is I'm playing it on my Switch. I play it when I have Switch time.
Yeah, so. a lot of the enhancements from from Second Evolution on the PSP were included in Second Story R.
Yeah, no,
and
it was good upgrades.
And then they even took it further.
It did, and yeah, this looks good. I haven't played this one yet, but I'm playing that remaster of not remaster, but the enhanced version of the first one, and it's very good for what it is.
This looks great.
And this is what I mean. This is literally what I mean when I say like just take these old school games and give them this treatment. I feel like it's enough of a difference for them to be like, oh man, nostalgia and it's modern, like that lighting is super cool.
This would be the way I would love to see Xenogears redone.
Yeah.
Honestly, would you like to see a full remake of Chrono Trigger in this style, or something more updated, like modernize it completely? I feel like that one needs like a full change.
It would be the Dragon Quest
Toriyama having passed. Yeah.
It would be the Dragon Quest treatment for Chrono Trigger, I think. Or if they take like the cell shade route with like Arc System style, with like Dragon Ball Fighter Z, but like RPG, like that kind of production, that'd be super cool.
There's 2 ways I'd like to see Chrono Trigger redone, if it's even redone at all. Something similar to this, at the very least, as far as like at least taking the the classic sprites and adding a lot of the modern stuff to it that was done with Star Ocean: The Second Story R, or if we are actually taking into account Square Enix's track record with their remakes, if they decide to go more of a active sort of action based type of remake with Chrono Trigger, then you've already got a perfect example for it with Grand Blue Fantasy Relink.
Yeah. Look at this. This is we could have had this.
Yeah, this is the one that was 3D artist who goes by .dev did this, so it's a 2.5D vibe to it. But after
they did this
watching
with
the
Zelda
second
1,
story,
and it was super cool. But Nintendo hates this stuff, so unfortunately,
stuff.
They do. Anyway, before I get more sad, that is our week of gaming history. All right, Nicholas, take us to some news. What we got for quick bites?
Let's hang out. Let's talk news. Another week in the books. Thank you so much, everyone in chat, for coming back for more of the news. I always like talking about this stuff, but seeing your reactions in chat are just as hilarious, especially because we are going to have to start with a double dose of Sony online shooter news for all of you this week. Let's kick it off with that. I know you guys probably pretty familiar with what I'm going to talk about. First and foremost, let's talk about Haven Studios, the team that is developing Fairgames. Well, they've lost their founder and industry veteran, Jade Raymond, as she has left the studio. So that news has just broken this last week. I think a little bit before that, in fact, maybe a week and a half. Obviously, that's never a good sign for a team when their founder and kind of like director is leaving the company. But this is even more of a red flag when you factor in the news getting around that Fairgames, through their early impressions testing that just happened, basically it's highlighting a bunch of concerns about the game because of that reception and the game's progress. On top of that, on top of the news that the game is just like not wowing anyone, and there's a lot of concerns, PlayStation did not give the staff at Haven a reason for Jade's departure, and Jade hasn't publicly said anything regarding it yet. So this sure as heck doesn't bode well optically for the game. No matter what happened on the back end, we can't really know. We're not attached to it. Optically, it's not good. Especially for something like this. Colin Moriarty on his Sacred Symbols PlayStation podcast did drop some extra news about this too, giving insight into the game, with test participants calling the game basically, quote, a battle royale crossed with an extraction shooter, with elements of Fortnite and the Division present. So a friend of mine had texted me earlier, like, hey, did you see this quote from the Sacred Symbols? And I pulled it up and I'm like, oh, it feels like I typed into ChatGPT, like, hey, ChatGPT, make me a game of like the things that are like the worst part of the gaming industry right now. This is what you get out of it. So there's been a lot said lately about PlayStation and their push for these online games and kind of like the failures they've seen. It really sucks because Jade Raymond is an awesome industry vet, has worked on some amazing titles, but hasn't released anything in a while. So there's kind of this hope that Haven Studios would be able to put this game out. I don't know if you remember this one. It kind of had a notorious reaction to the E3 like trailer that came out for it. It was the Eat the Rich kind of thing. You're super hip, kind of going through like Robin Hood-esque kind of thing. It totally, a lot of people kind of had pushback on it right away. So that now sandwiched with this like poor reception and yet another online shooter and yet another extraction shooter from, you guessed it, another Sony joint. Like it's just, it makes you kind of question what's going on. Of course, I can't go very far. I mentioned Double Dose. Marathon continues to be in the news. Just we're going to talk Haven. Might as well bring up Marathon again, right, boys? Continues to be in the news since everything broke about stolen textures in their game. In fact, this is the fourth time Bungie has been the subject of plagiarism claims. We talked on the panel last week all about this. Check out the VOD. Feel free to comment on that. We were talking about all the internal issues the studio is facing as the team as well. But now there's claims that all planned paid marketing for Marathon has been canceled. I'm going to shout out Colin Moriarty, Sacred Symbols again. He shared that he was told by someone familiar with the marketing plans in a key overseas market that there are now no plans to do paid marketing for Marathon at all. This isn't something that's confirmed across like multiple outlets, but other reports released in the last couple days, like Paul Tassie's recent one that he did on Forbes a couple days ago, call out that this is really unusual for a title this big and important. It's easy to kind of draw parallels to Concord's failure for Sony, but like Paul Tassi said in his article, this is Bungie. Like, of all these studios out there and what, you know, studios mean to people, like, this is Bungie. It's not just storied, but the studio was bought by Sony for $3.6 billion, and there's a lot of people are still saying that was a crazy amount of money and maybe a little too overvalued. So just remember that, you know, Marathon was supposed to release on September 23rd, but in the wake of needing to redo major art decisions, crashing employee morale, and now this, it's kind of the time to ask chat and the panel here, is Marathon going to be delayed or canceled?
You first, Ace.
Considering how much needs to be reviewed, just, you know, the art assets alone, if the game is delayed, it's going to be delayed for a long time. I feel like this is probably going to be one of those things where Sony might just cut their losses and cancel it.
Before I say anything, response, James, what do you think?
I mean, I agree. We don't know if it's a good or bad game yet, but I do think there is like BR fatigue, extraction fatigue. This right here, like, it's too soon for this to. It's too similar to like everyone's just going to be calling it like Concord 2.0, right? So that's just how our brains work as a society. But like they have
like
to
we
push
said,
it.
optically, that's what it
Yeah,
is.
they have to push it back so people can get it out of their heads, right? And maybe like build slowly up their trust again for it to work. Because it is still too fresh. And I think if I was a betting man, I think Sony's more worried about the reputation than like their reputation of having a studio that stole and has bad, you know, and stuff like that, versus like them releasing a game, because it's like overall like it's a net loss for them as a company versus monetarily. And I think I want these guys to kind of like do it right and do it good. Like, I don't want them to be like, just release it already, get it over with. I don't want that. I want them to be like, put their, you know, get back into it and like have more passion behind it and have a talk with Sony to be like, what can we do to make this good?
Yeah, it's a really interesting conversation to have, and as everyone who stays connected to the gaming industry at all knows, this is kind of like the talk of the town right now. Like, how bad is this going to be? Because a lot of the responses to it, like myself included, the little bit that I watched of it, I loved the art style, but you know, now that's got to be reworked. I felt that was the one thing that kind of like pulled me in, right? Overall, it seems like people tend to think like it's a decent enough game, but there needs to be more content. I know I said previously that I am not a big fan of extraction shooters. I wanted like a PvE aspect to it, and I definitely jump in the marathon, but they don't have that. It feels like it's not very content rich. It's definitely very niche, and for the amount of money they put into this already, not just in Bungie, but the amount of money they've shoved into this project, delaying it is just even more money they're going to go in on
I
it.
know, and that's the tough part.
Right, exactly. Like, is Sony going to give them another year for this game that's potentially already DOA? Like, that doesn't even make sense.
Here's the thing, man. Like, ultimately, it comes down to this. I know Ace will relate to this. Why would I play this and pay what, $40 for it? Is that what it was? Right.
That's what the rumors are kind of saying. Okay. It's going to be in that price.
Why would I spend $40 on this when I can play the first Ascended?
Or any other free to play?
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's like, and that's kind of what I'm getting by that. Is that like, right now they're. I was talking about this on Saturday when I was streaming Mass Effect. I was like, every time a studio makes a game that has to play catch up to the trend, it tends to fail just because they're playing catch up. There's already like some sort of like fatigue behind it, so they have to make it distinct in some way or form. And this already has a lot of red flags on it, and they're fighting an uphill battle. So it's rough,
especially when you've got games on the market like Escape from Tarkov and Arc Raiders.
Right, and that's the other side of this, and it's worth mentioning really quick. I know we're going into discussion territory a little bit. I'll get right back to the news. So bear with me. But this is a really good example of with those trends trying to redefine it and having a clear vision, right? So the thing about those games, the extraction shooters, it's been said ad nauseum now, it's more of a hardcore crowd that plays them, right? The people that are into those kind of games are in for that hardcore kind of thing. You could lose everything in a round, right? Not my style of game, but it has its fans. Something like this, Bungie was going into it. They're trying to make it more stream, trying to make it more approachable. But the problem is that the game still, to this point, from what we've seen, doesn't scratch that itch. There's not enough content. So from the get-go, your plan or vision for it isn't quite right. So you should have more time to work on it. But just the fact that they seemed like they were sticking right to that release date, and now all this stuff is coming out, and now potentially this marketing is just like axed completely in this market, like, it's not good. It's not good, and this is going to spell doom to a lot of people at Bungie. I know there's a lot of people calling for just like, hey, like the leadership is the issue. Maybe this should be absorbed into PlayStation. We'll see what ends up having ultimately. I would not be surprised if this is delayed. The issue again is now if you're delaying it, let's see, because this probably needs a year at this point, depending on how bad, like Ace said, that marketing, how deep that goes. You're coming out the same year as GTA.
I mean, honestly, it sounds like
in a couple months after GTA releases, potentially.
Like you talked about how there was a pushback when this game was on planning, like the Sony wanted it to be made, and these guys were like, "No, we got to make it this way," and they were like, "No, you got to do it this way." And I think that moment right there spelled doom for this game because, like, you can tell like, they made it. You can tell they were passionate about making it the way they wanted to, but they were forced to make it a certain way. So it's like it's both sides. I'm just saying it's not one side, but like I know what it feels like to work on something you don't want to work on, but you have to do it because it's your job, right?
I think Bungie itself did want to go in this direction, and I was mentioning they said from the get-go they wanted to like make it more approachable, make it more mass market. Like that was their goal. Sony as a directive was like, hey, more online shooters, games as a service, let's give a platform, let's, we'll be able to monetize that and build a long-term ecosystem. So it's just not meshing. Anyway, let's move on by talking about Bungie again. Bungie also made news via Destin Legari's recent YouTube video discussing past and present happenings at the studio. As told by former Bungie employees in one meeting, adding a subscription to Destiny was brought up, only to be vehemently shut down by staff. Destin also said that a former employee shared everything happening at Bungie is because of greed. However, the truth ends up coming out with all of this. We have to admit that optically, nothing is sounding good for the studio lately. So let's talk about something good. Clair Obscur Expedition 33, just in time for episode 33, as Ace called out at the top of it. At the top of it all, it has hit an auspicious milestone, my friends, and within the first 33 days, it has managed to sell 3.3 million copies. So fantastic news for that super small team, and really laying into that 3 for,
they can't sell
for all
anymore.
of us tonight. Yeah, no more. Just cut it off. Even if you own a PlayStation, or heck, even if you don't forget that tomorrow their Days of Play celebration kicks off. We here on the panel are more than happy to highlight a chance to save a little bit of money, especially right now. There's going to be discounts on consoles, games, accessories, like their DualSense controllers are getting a little bit of a price drop, as well as some of their big titles like Astrobot are getting pretty big discounts. But PlayStation Plus is also giving out bonus games in addition to their new monthly titles on PlayStation Plus across all tiers of their subscriptions. So check those out in case you want to fill your digital backlog, or if you want to try something different. There's some good stuff on there. PlayStation has decided, on the flip side of that, the other shoe's dropping, they've decided to shut down their PlayStation Stars program. So via a post on the PS blog.
The email.
Yeah, I did too. It was announced that this current program will end fully on November 2nd, 2026. You got a little bit of time. But as of today, no new members will be accepted. This was essentially PlayStation's cashback or loyalty program, so that's no longer going to be a thing. While I'm on the topic of game deals, I do want to call out one of my favorite titles. Andre, I see you're in the chat. You're going to appreciate this too, although you're already playing it, so you don't need it. Metaphor ReFantazio is going to go and remind Xbox Game Pass owners that if they haven't played it yet, it is releasing there. They need to get it. So on May 29th, Metaphor will be available on Game Pass. So if you have Game Pass, I think it's on Ultimate as well. Pick it up, play it. It's awesome. And if you didn't want to pay full price, if you have Game Pass, this is a great way to pick it up. The Last of Us TV show has just had a little shock as the the season 2 finale just hit, and it saw a massive viewership drop. It was revealed that there was a drop of 55% from the previous season's end, representing a gap of over 4.5 million viewers. I will say myself, I stopped watching after the first couple episodes. It just didn't grab me. My wife did finish it, and I know that she didn't care for the ending, more so the cliffhanger it ends on. But that's kind of a shocking drop. We'll see, what it means, especially because this wait to the next season is going to be a little bit more pointed because of the cliffhanger to end on. I won't spoil it if anyone in chat saw it. What's that?
I see the game story. People didn't like that either. Non-gamers didn't like that either.
So it's really funny because if you're on Reddit at all, there's 2 subreddits on Reddit devoted to this. There's the Last of Us HBO series subreddit, and then the Last of Us 2 subreddit, and they're talking about this right now. One side tends to like it, the other side does not, and it's really funny seeing like this complete flip-flop between these 2 communities discussing it. And every once in a while you get one person kind of like jumping over to the other community to post something, and it does not go well. But it
Stay on your side.
Yeah, it seems to be pretty divisive this year with this version, which is too bad because I personally love the first season. I had a lot of fun, getting my wife into watching it and seeing her get attached to it, and kind of reinvigorated my love for like the game when it first came out. I remember playing on PS3. Anyway, developer NetherRealm has confirmed that there'll be no more content support for Mortal Kombat 1 as the team is moving on to their next project. There'd been rumors of this after the definitive edition had released.
Oh yeah.
But there had been reports before that called out that all future DLC was being canceled after the Kombat Pack 2. So I have a question for the panel, because I know you guys are part of the FGC and have played this game and talked about it a little bit. How do you feel about this news, and where does MK1 sit in like the FGC as a whole?
Well, as far as MK1 goes, I've actually been holding off on even considering buying it because, I got burned with MK11 with Aftermath. So I'm literally just sitting back waiting until the game is going to be available at a discount with all the DLC. So that way I could finally, decide, okay, this might actually be worth my purchase. Either that, or if it shows up on PlayStation Network for free, then I'll just cop it that way.
James?
This game had the opposite effect of MK11. So MK11, everybody was hyped for it in the beginning. It looked really pretty, right? But it just played like dog doo-doo. Like it was too slow. Like it didn't, and it was coming off the reins of like MKX, which is super fast. And like that was like, I think MKX is technically the fan favorite, right? Because the combat on it was super fast, super quick. Yeah. 11 kind of dialed it back a little bit. Like when in fighting games, there's a expression in the way you fight, right? And you do combos. 11 like really railroaded that in specific items and certain, like you have to pick your moves, right? So this one had the opposite. Well, first of all, it's like it has the cameos, which is super new to Mortal Kombat. The tag system. It's basically Marvel vs. Capcom 1, and that's a very new to Mortal Kombat. And in the beginning, it played not great. It looked really pretty, right? But now, since it's been out to marinate and people have like been giving their feedback, it actually plays really fun right now, especially with the amount of expression of the cameos that you can pick. It really can change the way a character plays depending on the tag that you choose with it.
God forbid you try and play it on the Switch, though.
Oh yeah, don't that thing doesn't exist. But anyway, that's like the biggest thing about this game, but it's a little too late because like in the beginning it came off really slow because I think the tag mechanic, the cameo mechanic really made it weird for a lot of people and it kind of confused them a little bit. So, and the tone of the game is a little bit different than most Mortal Kombat games. It's very colorful versus like the grim, dark look. So I think there was a little bit of confusion. And also, and I'll end it with this, it has the weakest combat pack out of all the Mortal Kombats before. Like all the cameo characters, all of them were like guest characters. They weren't even from Mortal Kombat anymore. You have Homelander, like what is that? Omni-Man, right? Terminator and Conan, T-1000 and Conan. You're like, where are the Mortal Kombat characters? Like that's what people want to see. They want to see more Mortal Kombat characters. So. And I think that's what helped kill the game and the low sales of the game.
Yeah, especially with like certain, fan favorite characters that people were hoping to see in the game as full fighters being relegated to cameos like Jax.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that, and that's what happens when you add a new tag mechanic like that. Like my character has now been delegated to an assist.
Yeah.
We don't like that, and that's a no buy for me. Right? That's instant for some people.
Fair enough.
Mhm.
Well, I know there's Tekken 8 news. I did not have that on here. Did you want to share that really quick? I know they announced Armor King is coming as well as another character.
Yeah. So Fakuram, the monster from Seven, is back. He's the Muay Thai fighter. And Armor King, he's coming out next month, and Armor King's coming out the month after that, like maybe the end of summer, which is my second main in Tekken. And then the last character for this season pass is supposedly a new character that's never been out in Tekken before. So, but otherwise, it had a pretty positive reception at Combo Breaker, because see that, man, the new patch really tore up the game. People are so pissed. Then they did a 2.5 patch, which is slowly getting the trust back, and I felt that when I played the game last week. So
Okay,
yeah,
good.
good luck.
On the road to recovery. Appreciate that. Thank you. During a special showcase of Nobunaga's Ambition Awakening CE, the game's producer has shown off that the Nintendo Switch 2 will support standard USB mice on certain games. So that's awesome. You don't have to use just the Joy-Con mouse. You can plug in your own
Ooh,
mouse, your own USB mouse.
that's cool.
For strategy game fans like myself, like that's fantastic news
Yeah.
if I ever get a Switch 2. But there is no mention yet if wireless mice will be supported. So that's something we got to keep an eye out for. You know what else has been in the news? James, you sent me a
Oh
text about
man,
it. Let's talk
I
about
did.
Star Wars Battlefront
I
2.
did.
What
Yeah.
year is it? It's back. Star Wars Battlefront 2 has seen its highest concurrent play count in over 4 years on Steam. As of May 23rd, the peak hit 9,777, which compares to the January 2020 peak of 10,489. So pretty close to hitting its all-time peak, which is pretty crazy. A video from content creator Jack Frags contributes the potential resurgence from the recent May the 4th Steam sale and the success of Andor Season 2, which is great, by the way. So I can see that definitely being a thing. If anything, this has thrown a spotlight on the community revisiting this game, which is really cool, and that it still, in this day and age, looks really, really good, especially when compared to like some of the recent releases, which is crazy to think for this game that came out, however many years
Yeah.
ago. Obviously, this kicked off rumors about Battlefront 3 being made, but multiple outlets and former devs have come out of the woodworks to say that isn't true or even likely to happen at this point. So I had to dash that a little bit, unfortunately,
Is
but pretty
is
crazy
this
to hear.
this game made by EA, the re-release?
The published by it, yeah.
Published by
Was it Dice that did that
Okay.
Battlefront?
Because right
I remember
now
Battlefront 2 was notorious for um, the gambling in it, the loot
right, the
boxes.
loot box. No, the reason why I'm bringing that up because I think the current ownership of Star Wars license is Ubisoft right now. That's why.
It was developed by Dice, Pandemic, and Savage Entertainment.
That's why there couldn't be a Battlefront 3
So
if
if there's something we can say
yeah.
about Dice, that Frostbite engine is pretty. It didn't work well for Mass Effect, but it certainly looked pretty in Mass Effect, minus the tired faces. No, don't bring that back. The Pokemon Company has posted new sales figures for the franchise's video games. In the chat or comments, feel free to shout out which of the Pokemon games that you played that were your favorite, or maybe your first. I'd love to see that. That's pretty cool to see. But TCPI revealed that over 489 million units have been sold across all Pokemon video games. The release windows from the original release in 1996 all the way through March 2025 for these features, and they highlighted that the games are available in 9 languages worldwide. They also shared a little info about the Pokemon TCG, which is pretty cool. It has exceeded 75 billion cards, 16 languages added, and the game being sold in over 90 countries and regions worldwide.
Crazy.
Yeah, pretty crazy. Another news bite that is from a previous rumor mill discussion landed last week as well. Bandai Namco has confirmed that they are teaming up with A24 and writer-director Alex Garland to bring out an Elden Ring live-action film. So it is officially official from Bamco themselves. Rumor mill time. There's a couple rumors, as always. grain of salt. We'll see what happens out of it. Just kind of fun discussions that we can have about this. According to Jeff Grubb over at Giant Bomb, welcome back from the ashes, Giant Bomb, and citing Liam Croft at Push Square, Sony is planning to hold an event for PlayStation next month. Grubb himself doesn't believe it'll be a big showcase, but has definitely been discussed internally, which we've chatted before ourselves here on the panel. Signs are pointing to a state of play, and Jeff is saying June is, from what he's hearing, is when that's going to come out. InsiderGaming.com is reporting that sources familiar with AC Shadow's continued development have mentioned that despite the recent release pushes by Ubisoft, the first DLC, Claws of Awaji, is aiming for a September release but could be pushed to October. Additionally, they have claimed that the sources mentioned Shadows' upcoming co-op mode, which is codenamed League, is still in development and intended to release sometime next year. And a rumor straight out of one of our rhetorical question segments, here's a little twist on a long-standing franchise. On X, Dusk Golem, a casual game developer, recently spoke about Resident Evil 9. According to them, RE9 originally started development in 2017, and in reaction to the sales of RE7 at launch, the dev team apparently felt the need to go in another direction completely for the next mainline installment. He stated that the original version of RE9 was started as a big open world multiplayer game, which featured Leon and Jill on a fictional island based in Singapore. The source clarified that when RE Village was released in 2021, RE9 did receive a pretty heavy reboot, though some of the details remained the same, like the MC being Leon. Lastly, according to Daniel RPK via comicbook.com, Valve is reportedly developing Half-Life 3 as the quote-unquote final chapter of the franchise. After 2 more decades, just give me the game, and please don't give me a cliffhanger. I can't take episode 3 waiting all over again. That'll kill me. So all these rumors about Half-Life 3 being a thing and potentially coming out, the HLX project, well, now it's starting to sound like this is going to be it, and it's starting to become more and more real. I don't know, man. I don't know about you two, but it feels like it's getting a little too complicated to just be a rumor. It's got to be being made, right?
It honestly seems like there's just more and more bits and pieces coming out, discussing Half-Life 3 that, it's that whole, it's that whole thing, about how, once is a coincidence, twice is a pattern, thrice is a trend.
I appreciate the thrice.
I'm just surprised we haven't seen any leaks, because we're like in the era of leaks,
We are, but it's Valve. Valve is pretty tight-lipped in the way that their company is set up. It's very difficult for this kind of stuff to get out, especially after stuff in the past getting out. And with something like Half-Life 3, the only real leaks we've seen is people getting data mining and assuming based on a piece of code they see. It's that much of a tight ship. That's why it's kind of difficult to be a fan of Half-Life and want Half-Life 3, because there's just a nugget once every 5 years, and it's really it's copium in its highest regard. I'll fully admit to that.
Think of it like this: a properly working Valve prevents the majority of leaks.
It's probably working, man. I mean, I remember when Half-Life Alyx came out, I wasn't expecting that. That's for sure. And it was a great game. And I had to borrow a buddy's headset to play it, and that kind of hurt me. But I got a shared window, James. You can pop it up. I've got 2 small articles about one discussion. Let's bring this up because it's in the news right now. First article, if you wouldn't mind tossing it in the chat for me for people who want to read along. But Borderlands 4 has, quote, twice the development budget of Borderlands 3, and the game price is still unknown. The reason I'm bringing this up is something that we kind of talked about, I think, in one of our private chats. Randy Pitchford said something, and that's going to be the second article we'll go into. But he said something, and this is kind of going to be part of the discussion. This first article is really talking about Randy being quoted about prices of dev going up, and has doubled from Borderlands 3 to 4. I know we've been talking a lot about the cost of video game development. I thought this was worth jumping into really quick. So the price for it still isn't known. But as it says here in the article, Randy Pitchford posted a video on his X page on May 21st concerning the game's price. He said, I'll tell you the truth, I don't know, and that is the truth. There are some folks that don't want to see prices going up, even the ones deciding what prices are. There's other folks accepting the reality that game budgets are increasing, and there's tariffs for the retail packaging. It's getting gnarly out there. The topic of the game's budget also came up. Borderlands 4 has more than twice the development budget than Borderlands 3. More than twice, he added, and confirmed that pre-orders were opening soon, and that's when the prices will be set. Jason Schreier reported in 2020 that by the time Borderlands 3 wrapped up, its overall budget was around $140 million. If Pitchford's words hold true, Borderlands 4 budget is closer to $300 million. So we're going to find out pretty shortly, as the article says, when the game releases, if it's going to be worth it. But the reason this is worth bringing up, again, just to talk about like prices are rising as a whole. It's not just our pockets, but the people making these games. But that led to this. Randy Pitchford says, quote, real fans would pay $80 for Borderlands 4. So I wanted to bring it up with you guys to see what you think. But as the headline says, he says real fans will pay that. He goes on to mention the price point when he bought a Genesis game back in the day, pardon me, and like a whole debate ensued from this. A lot of people responding to that original tweet. I think, Randy did have a point, just didn't say it well. And I'm wondering if you two will feel the same or what you'll take from it. Gearbox head Randy Pitchford says that, quote, real fans will pay $80 for Borderlands 4 if that's the price of the game. Recently, a fan commented that Borderlands 4 better not be $80 on a post Pitchford had made. That immediately garnered from Pitchford, who said that the pricing decision wasn't his call. However, he added a comment on the idea of games being too expensive at $80 and said that true fans will find a way to pay the price. He said, quote, if you're a real fan, you'll find a way to make it happen, he said about the $80 price point. My local game store had Starflight for Sega Genesis for $80 in 1991 when I was just out of high school working minimum wage at an ice cream parlor in Pismo Beach, and I found a way to make it happen. Pitchford's comments claiming that if they were a real fan, they'd find a way to spend $80 on a new game was met with backlash from a number of people on social media. The price is not the issue. The issue is what our ownership looks like now compared to back in 1991, said one user. Added another, dude, you must be out of touch with today's economy. It is over 4 times more difficult for a single person to make a living with the current cost of living. So this was part of that debate we were talking about before, as the article says, about video game prices continuing to rise with the studios trying to push this up. The fact that James said on a previous podcast about how pardon me, I'm like choking on my own spit right now. Got to get some more like water in there. James had brought up before just games in the past versus now, what that actually means. Like we had a really good conversation around it, but I think Randy did try to bring up a good point, but maybe just didn't say it the right way. What do you two think about these little 2 articles? Thoughts and opinions on the situation? Borderlands price is definitely double. Randy says a thing. Internet responds.
So I'll, seeing as how we're talking about, 2 different articles,
so the first article, I jumped through it at the very top, did quote this second one.
Yeah. But, seeing as how we're still, this is a sort of multifaceted discussion. Opinions on Randy Pitchford can be whatever they are. But this is something of a multifaceted discussion. Firstly, there's the development cost, the development cost of Borderlands 4, and just the discussion about how the cost for that game has literally doubled between 3 and 4. And it again it's another piece of evidence, sorry, not another piece of evidence so much as it's something else that showcases
another example.
Yeah, it's another example of just, the bloat that has been, prevalent in, marketing and in game development as a whole, especially, when it comes to, the financial aspects, just trying to scale things up further and further and, having to recoup that scaling up. It's
So-
like if the cost of your next game is double your previous, then that's even more you've got to try and make back just to break even.
So if I can respond to that, is that okay?
Mhm.
Just not to play devil's advocate, but to have a discussion to a point you brought up. Bloat, I think, is not correct here. It's a required cost that they have to spend to dev these games. It's not them just doing it just because. They're required to spend this much to get in front of our eyes in marketing. I can tell you just in my own experience, being a marketing professional, the cost of things have gotten higher because it's that much more, I'll say, polluted out there. There's that many more eyes you have to try to get in front of because there's so many other voices out there, so many other games, so many, like the TikTok brain is a thing. Like, you really have to spend that much to get any eyes on your game. As far as development costs, the cost of wages, the cost of technology, cost of everything is going up. They would spend less if they could. That being said, I think what you were going for with bloat is just like when a lot of these games, I can't say Borderlands falls into that yet because I don't have my hands on the game, so I don't know. But a lot of bloat when it comes to that is too many game systems, too much just like trash design decisions, in our opinion, as players. Stuff that's not needed would be part of that bloat. Like that, I think, is a different conversation. But the cost of game dev is astronomically high. As someone who did spend some time in the industry, the amount of wages that it costs to bring in some of these devs for some of these roles, and then imagine like a team of 100 earning that much, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just for your talent. And now over 4 years of dev, you're almost at $1 million just in that, right? Just in this example. So the cost is going to be that high. And then you've got everything else on top of that. They got the marketing on top of that. So that is just a small example of just like, these are the prices. Prices have to go up. And as James mentioned on the previous one, prices going up, we've been in this like sweet spot of like of inflation in video games where we haven't had to pay increased prices, but we probably should have, like looking back over it. Like there's that whole discussion too. So the game going up to 80, we've talked about that a lot. There's a lot of conversation happening in the industry right now. I don't think it's the worst thing. It's just optically, again, it's happening during a time when everything is going up in price. So we've got less and less like extra money, like disposable income to spend on games. And it feels like we're getting that crunch.
And that's actually what goes into, the second, excuse me, the second part of my response to this. And it's, again, with, Randy Pitchford's, comments. And honestly, even before, even before playing devil's advocate, as far as, what he actually said and trying to suss out what he actually meant. What's how can I put this? It goes without saying that two of humanity's best evolutionary traits are opposable thumbs and pattern recognition. With what Randy Pitchford said, that brings to mind a pattern of, developers, or, more importantly, talking heads from these different developers and studios that have been getting the spotlight, that are a lot more sure of themselves than they probably should be, turning, you know, turning their games, or even turning the financial barrier of entry to their games into a loyalty test. So there's that you have to consider, as far as, again, being the face of a studio, or the face of the face of any sort of team.
Right. And I think that brings up the point of what we were kind of talking about at the very beginning of the articles, which was he might have been trying to say something, a little bit deeper than that, but then it came across like this loyalty test. And that's the problem, is optically
It came
isn't the
across
same
as
as what you meant.
it came across as disastrously flippant. And the problem, this goes back to pattern recognition, because this ain't the first time Randy Pitchford has been disastrously flippant in the face of growing in the face of growing concerns from, the user base in regards to, things that are going on in previous games, even in previous Borderlands games.
Sure. James, what are you, man?
First question, Andre, would you pay $80 for a Devil May Cry 6? Let me just put it in chat. Let me know if you would pay $80 for a Devil May Cry 6. So this has many layers, and I'll just go through it piece by piece, like quickly, not like I don't want a discussion about it. Economy, can't control that. I always tell chat every time, focus on what you can control. Unfortunately, guys, video games is a luxury item. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. Right? Things are going to get more expensive. Things are going to get, our rent goes up, everything goes up. The only thing that doesn't really go up is our paychecks, and I think that's where we're really feeling the burn here. Right? Now, in response to Randy's comment, I think he just meant it like if you love something, you're gonna do whatever it takes to get that. That's all he's trying to say, but he said it in his Randy Pitchford way, right? So look, so $80 DMC. I think Andre's down, right? Because you'll buy the things that you love. I have a coworker at work that says he'll spend $200 on GTA 6. He loves it, and that's what he means by that. If you love something, you're gonna do whatever it takes.
For sure.
Now,
I kind of got that same vibe too, and that's I'm glad you brought that up.
here's the other thing. If we're gonna make a comparison of games back in the day versus now, well, that star game he bought was a full game. Don't give us DLC, give us the full game, or make the DLC $0. People will be okay with that. That's what you can't compare now from back then. Is that you're paying extra money for more content? Well, back then you got the full game. Well, give us the full game, and we'll pay $80 for it. Right? That's the other argument there.
Yeah.
Why is it doubled? It doesn't have to be double that price, but they choose to, right? It is Borderlands. It has some notoriety behind it. People know what it is, and people are excited for it. But with the example Expedition 33, you can make a good game without a bloated budget, right? And that's the difference here. Marketing, for sure, I understand. There's a lot of money that goes into marketing, but I guarantee you, if you made a good game, you're not going to need that marketing, because Expedition 33 is the reason for that. That's a prime example. Now, so you have a legacy of Borderlands behind this game. You should have the advantage over Expedition 33. So that's really not an excuse, in my opinion. The other thing too, I feel like the budget is based on the amount of people willing to invest in this game. We're talking about, like I said, the 2K thing, right? If investors are like, I want to make money on Borderlands 4, that budget's going to go towards this, and so they need that money back in some way or form. So, and I think you're right when it comes down to like the reason why it costs this much is because there's so many people backing this to make money from it. So we're actually left with the cost and the pressure to fulfill that, right? And the devs have that pressure to fulfill that as well. So, and I think that's a very shitty situation. Once again, my whole reason for money ruining video games. So
yeah. So I won't obviously respond because you didn't want to. So great response. Thank you so much. Just for what I was trying to say before, as far as like, let's just say wages for something like this. Borderlands 3 has credited 2,698 individuals across various roles as working on that. So 1,673 were professional roles. So if we take that 1,673 professional roles, and the average cost of wages for a game developer is from 50K to 180K, and that's like entry to max. So let's just put it at like 60K. For the argument's sake.
Mhm.
That's $100,000 for your wages for 1 year.
Yep.
Just for these, and that's lowballing. That's not doing any kind of like senior roles, and there's a lot of them in there. But you times that by the game's development thing, and you're spending, $500,000 plus on just your staff's wages, not to mention everything else that goes with it, your overheads, everything like that. So just the cost as a whole for a game development team is crazy. And the discussion should be more so, why is there this much, to borrow Ace's word, this much bloat in game dev? Like, why can't it be more focused? That's why these smaller teams, like the Clair Obscur team that made that, being a smaller team, being focused, having that kind of, focus in their design, is able to account for that lower overhead and really focus on those games. So comes down to direction. It comes down to the overall project. It comes down to the need of these teams. So, like you both said, it's nuanced. I just thought it was worth bringing up, especially as a fan of Borderlands myself, and then also someone who's worked in PR and has worked in marketing and has worked in front-facing roles, just like the communication side of it from Randy. It's like, I know you were trying to go for something here. It just was not good. Tripped over your own shoelaces kind of thing. And it's unfortunately, like Ace said, there's a history of this, so people immediately are going to be like, okay, this is this pattern again. Screw this guy.
Well, here,
anyway,
I mean, I'm just saying. I want to say that, like, if you've been working on Borderlands forever, you have experience and to know what works well. Like, you shouldn't have to, I don't know. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, that's what I had for the news tonight, guys. Thank you for sticking through it and having a chat about some Borderlands stuff. But hey, another week down.
Love it. I'm excited for this. All right, thanks, Nick. All right, man. I'm ready to step in the ring with the mask. Griffin mask. Let's go.
Here we go.
What you got for us, Ace?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's get ready for Goro!
There you go.
Like GQ said, we are stepping back into the ring for Fatal Fury Mark of the Wolves. Sorry, City of the Wolves. And we are going to be touching base with one of the classic characters from Mark of the Wolves that has made his return to the ring, that being Tzok, a.k.a. the Griffin Mask. And, of course, I had to, recolor him with some, with that Macho Man flair, because, why not?
And I'm glad you're having them beat up Ronaldo. You ruined our game.
But, for those of us that are actually, getting into the game and, want to look into someone that does considerably more, as it's put in, third person action and first person shooter titles, someone that does more burst damage, more, single hit, heavy caliber. If you are not blocking, his strikes will rock you. And if you are blocking, his throws will put you into the dirt. Then Tzok's the one to go with. Now, you got to look at it like Street Fighter, right? Quick clapping. You got to look at it like Street Fighter. Street Fighter had their Zangief. Tzok is no exception. You've got your spinning aerial command grab, but you also have, different striking maneuvers that will help you either cover the screen or at the very least, if you use them as combo enders, you're going to be able to cash out quite a bit of damage that you've built up. Now, as I'm showing off here, Tzok's got 3 different command grabs for various situations. Of course, if you're in close, you do the full circle with one of your punch attacks, and that's going to give you, the Hurricane. His second command grab, is another one that's in close, but this is also works as a good combo finisher, believe it or not. And of course, let's go into the extended versions, the Rev Arts versions of both of these command grabs. Further damage with the Justice Hurricane, or with the extended version, you don't get the finisher where you bounce off the wall and run into his foot for that kick, but instead you get a wall bounce, which allows you to follow up with, other attacks, or specifically other Rev Arts variants of his specials. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. He has 4 command grabs because he also has one that is specifically designed to help him cover the distance and home in on his opponent. Or at the very least, get you across the screen. So if you've got someone that's, remaining stationary, trying to stay on the ground and has been, blocking most of your strikes or most of your block strings, you switch to that one. That technically counts as an overhead, so they can't even try to avoid it low, let alone they can't even avoid it high, let alone trying to duck it to avoid low. And it's also considering, his Rev Arts links, that I actually am reminded that, he doesn't have 4 command grabs. He has 5. His 5th one is air to air. Watching, I'll show you. So first off, we've got his striking maneuvers, a clothesline and a big elbow drop, classic pro wrestling stuff. His clothesline does a juggle when you extend it using the rev gauge. The big elbow drop, if you juggle someone with that and catch them in the air, it'll cause a ground bounce. And this is going to help me lead to his his air-to-air command grab. Case in point. So yeah, T-Zoc has 5 different ways to throw you. All of them hurt. And his additional striking attacks, which come from the SPG-enabled rev blows. He's got a drop kick when you're standing on the ground, and a flying cross chop once you're in midair. All of them, basically any of his striking specials, are designed to be combo finishers. This is the stuff where, if you just do something nice and simple, like, a far standing heavy punch, go into his clothesline, or go from here, try to catch someone blocking low with the overhead elbow drop, you're using his abilities to cash out for damage. Now, if it turns out that, they're blocking your striking attacks because it's like, okay, you're trying to get in, you're using your different moves to, cover ground to get you in close. Do remember, T-Zoc's a grappler. Just like Zangief, just like Clark, just like Potemkin. Their main game, their main strategy is to do whatever they can to fake out their opponents, change distance, getting close. And once you're in close enough, you can switch to one of your stupidly large arsenal of command grabs.
Mind games.
Now, as I was mentioning, you've got 2 different modes of play with T-Zoc. You've got your striker and you've got your grappler. Same goes for his super moves as well. So his level 1s, his ignition gear supers, either painful series of clotheslines or a 360 command grab. His red line gear supers, his level 2s, extended and decidedly more painful versions of the originals. Now, remember what we were talking about with World Heroes Perfect earlier, how certain supers actually have a change in their animation depending on whether or not you end the round with it? Well, let me change up a couple of settings here in the training mode here so we can show off. His hidden gear super.
Let him fly.
Can you fly, Bobby?
It's like a Nacho Libre.
Now that's just the normal one. That is just the, if you catch someone, closer to the beginning of the middle of closer to the beginning or the middle of the round, catch someone with that super, and you're dishing out pretty solid damage. But let's say if your opponent's at around 30 or maybe 25%, you are looking to end the round or end the fight in style.
Trying to end this man's career.
End this man's whole career. Wait for it.
Oh. Oh man, it should have been 1, 2, 3. Oh,
exactly. Ends it with the pin. And yeah, that right there for the most part is Talking Turkey with Tzok. If you're looking for a basic sort of extended rev chain with the Big Bird, then it's probably gonna look something like this. Let's try that again. Actually, no, it should be 1, 2, 3. Now I can tell you right now that series of attacks would at the very least do, 35 to 40% of your opponent's health if you've got the resources for it. Now I've seen, I've been keeping an eye on, as many of the more major players in this game as far as, just looking for different tech that I could try to study. And Tzok is a great character because while comparatively limited, compared to, certain other members of the cast, like say Gato or even Terry, Tzok's game plan is one of the most straightforward. And once you finally start landing those throws from any angle you choose, this man gets a lot scarier. So if you're looking to keep things really up close and personal, the bird is the word. And that is Tzok 101.
Nice. And a scale of 1 to 10, how difficult do you think Tzok is to play?
Scale of 1 to 10,
10 being the most difficult.
Scale of 1 to 10, ease of use, I would actually, I'd put him on the higher end, closer to like 7 or 8. Largely because, again, he's a grappler. He doesn't have much as far as range. You can't get into a firefight with him. You have to use his abilities to move you in close to get the big damage to cash out.
Fair. As the struggle of all grapplers.
Yep.
Keep him at bay. That's the strategy with them. So.
Yep. The grappler struggle continues to be real.
Well, awesome, man. Thank you. Who's you got a teaser for our next one, or gonna do another poll?
Probably gonna do another poll, but considering some of the votes that I've gotten thus far, I'll probably just take the second most requested character from the first poll that I ran, or the first few times that I actually handed it over to the audience to choose who's next. So it'll very likely wind up being Gato next.
Nice. I've been looking forward to that. He was my main in Garo. So I'm looking forward to see how he changed up in this one.
Yep, definitely one of the more technical characters, not just since the first game, but even in KOF 11 where he made his first comeback.
Yeah, I don't think did I play 11? Which one's 11?
11 was the one that introduced Oswald.
Oh, right. The weird one, the one that didn't do the year. That's right. Cool. Awesome. Looking forward to that one. I'll be here. Just know that I'll be here.
No
He'll
problem.
sub to that.
All right, Tuzak, gotta go. All right, so we're a little bit over, but I do want to share some last minute statements here. Wanted to give a big shout out to everyone who tuned in and also kind of donated this whole month for the St. Jude's thing. I think I just checked, we're at $200 right now, and I've yet to hear from my donators from last year, like from my side of the family. So maybe I'm not annoying enough. Last year I was pretty annoying, so I'll get them to jump in. I had some people at work too, I think, donated a little bit, and some people that I haven't talked to in a while jumped in randomly and then donated like a few bucks. So it's pretty interesting. So all over the place. So I appreciate every one of y'all. All right. So before we end the stream, is everybody playing the same thing as always? I know, Nick, you're busy.
I'm busy as shit, dude. I'm playing like Vampire Survivors, and when I'm not playing Vampire Survivors, you were streaming Mass Effect, and I'd be in chat. Like, I ain't got time for anything else. Which, Andre, thanks for being there for some of that. I'm trying to convince him to play Mass Effect 2, but before he plays the game, let me hop in chat with him to like discuss the decisions he made.
Yeah. I'm down with that. I'm down with that. I actually wanted to. I wish you would have been there when I finished it, because I was actually shocked that I finished it like that quickly.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, not to shortchange it. I mean, it's great that we're doing that for you're doing that for St. Jude. I threw in what I could. Got to get that first paycheck before I can give anything else. Especially with the kid on the way. But it was really fun watching you kind of run through that again, because it's been a while since I replayed it. It did move a little bit quicker than I thought. When you were already at Veermeyer at the hours you were in, I was like, really?
Yeah, it is a 2007 game, so it's not as bloated as.
I am very excited to see you get into 2 though and see what you think, because
I hear that's the best one, so I'm excited
for
for
me.
that one.
Yeah, it's like playing Uncharted 1 and then going to Uncharted 2. Like Uncharted 2 was just the peak.
Like Street Fighter 1 to Street Fighter 2.
Yeah, for me, I could pretty much rattle off what I've been playing this week. Playing the First Descendant, been getting back into Warframe. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, I've also been doing a lot of off-stream playing with, like, going back to the PS1 and PS2, so playing stuff like Street Fighter EX Plus Alpha, Street Fighter EX2 Plus. Started playing Legaia 2 Dual Saga again. Also, fired up Namco Cross Capcom for a little bit. And I am also very much looking forward to the next expansion for Monster Hunter Wilds, because they finally added the 15th weapon to the game. Or they're going to add the 15th weapon.
Sounds like you're into online games. Can I interest you in one or more extraction shooters?
Nope.
No, the future is going to be extraction hunters. That's what.
Oh no! Don't give them ideas.
That evil on me. But yeah, the thing that I just started playing aside from Mass Effect was this bad boy. It just released not that long ago. So, look, I played a little. I went to the training room a little bit on SNK Capcom 2, and I just get the dust off, and it was bad. I forgot how to play the game. And then I went online.
Really quickly, before you say anything else, Andre, I have to ask you: is this payback for my mention of Samurai Legend Musashi on stream the other day? Extraction Musos, man,
bro, Extraction Muso would be rough. Okay, homework. Tell me how that would work. Extraction Muso. That would be crazy.
No. You go in, then Lubu kills you, and you lose all your gear.
Oh, you send Lubu would be like the nuclear bomb in that
game. You have to dodge Lubus.
Yeah. And there's a timer for him.
Lubus.
Lubu appears in 2 minutes.
That is no. Make it like Exoprimal.
Oh no!
The enemy army.
Stop it.
Enemy army was given a Dominator.
Stop it. Get some help. As Michael Jordan would say. This game's great. It's got a lot of games, even Power Stone 1 and 2, which is awesome. It's got Project Justice, as as Blaze mentioned. Plasma Swords in there as well. It's pretty great. The only game that's like sus in here is Capcom Fighting Evolution, right? Because knows what that is, right? But yeah, Power Stone 1 and 2 is great in this. But the real game that everyone's playing online right now is Capcom versus SNK 2. And you can queue up online for all the games at the same time, which is great. I don't know if you knew that. So if you want to play all the games online ranked, you can queue them up, all of them, and then which one connects first is the one you play. So it's super fun.
Okay.
Yeah. It also has Street Fighter 3 Alpha Upper, like the latest version of Street Fighter Alpha 3. Hence the Ken theme from today, which is super, super neat. But yeah, let me close. Anybody else got any final statements before I close out?
No, sir.
No? Okay.
No, not for me. Same as I mentioned before, my daughter's being born in a couple weeks. So depending on how that goes, I may be taking a short break from podcasting, depending on how my weeks go. So
Okay.
we'll see what goes. Hopefully, I'll still be in chat if I can't be on it directly. Kind of depends on how the schedule is going to shift out with baby in arms.
All right, yeah, just let us know. Gaming Academy does give you a sabbatical, so FYI.
Try to make it work as best I can, but I've got a small human to handle.
I do want to share something with y'all because I went shopping over the weekend and I found this little treat that I stumbled upon at our local gaming store. And I was like, man, I couldn't find any of this online, but look what I got. I found a brand new sealed one.
Brand new sealed, potentially the worst of the mini consoles.
It's the only one I don't have. I have the Tuber Graphics one. I got all the other ones.
Do you keep them all sealed?
I do. I want to display them like over time.
Okay. If you come across one of the Super Nintendo ones that aren't egregiously priced, I want one to play.
Okay. Yeah. The SNES minis.
Yeah. Because I have my Genesis mini, but I've been wanting the SNES mini.
Oh, is Blue in the chat today? I don't know if Blue's in the chat today, but I also managed to pick up Skitterhead also. So
nice.
Yeah. So I know Blue's been playing it. So I'm catching up, guys. I'm getting there. But anyway, with that said, let's close out for tonight because that's going to do it for the class 33 of the Gaming Academy. Big shout out to everyone who tuned in, of course, chatted, laughed, and most importantly, donated to the St. Jude's campaign. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Y'all are legends. We're proud to have this shared month of gaming good with all of y'all. Especially tonight, from talk to $80 games, Half-Life 3 rumors to Tzok Tech. The episode had it all and some more. So once again, be good to each other, support what you love, and don't be afraid to drop your hot takes in the comments or chat because we're going to bring them back. We'll be back next class with more badness, more memory, more wipes, and definitely more rhetorical chaos. Until then, keep gaming, keep growing, and Ace?
Class dismissed.
You got it. Have a good night, everybody.